Greetings, salutations, hello! Welcome to another Dreadlocks Question and Answer video where I try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. First question this week comes courtesy of Kyle Ines. Question: if a person has unsectioned dreads and the dreads form randomly, if there is a large gap between the dreads, like right at the top of your head where all the hair is taken up by like two dreads, is there anything you can do to make a dread between them? Okay, so if you have two dreads at the top of your head that are big and kind of pull and leave a gap in between, you won't be able to do much about that unless there's enough loose hair in between those two dreads to form a new dread. You can't sort of create a dread from nothing. So you really have kind of three options maybe. Either one, the easiest, get used to having two dreads that are large and pull and make a gap in between. As the dreadlocks get older, you might find that you start to get some loose hair there and the roots get kind of loose, and then you won't actually really be able to see as much of a gap in between. But if they're big and pulling in complete opposite directions, you will still get a sort of part line in between pretty much forever. Second option would be you can cut the two dreads into multiple dreads. I don't really recommend this. I know people have taken thick dreads that have grown too large, and they have been successfully cut into, like down the middle, into new separate dreads, but that leads to dreads not being as strong as they possibly could be. So if it is at all possible, I would advise against it. Third option would be to remove the two dreadlocks that are causing this trouble and reform them as new dreadlocks that are, you know, sectioned in a way that won't annoy you as much. It's not so much fun to have to take dreadlocks out, but if these two dreadlocks are going to continue to annoy you forever, it may just be easier to condition and pick them out and then restart them rather than have to constantly be looking them in the mirror all the time and knowing that they're annoying you. Robert Ruiz asks, what if instead of using baking soda and water, you used baking powder and water? Okay, so it's a really common question whether you can just use baking powder instead, and I think it's because basically once you've decided or heard about wanting to do a deep clean, you just go look what is ever in your cupboard, and sometimes it's baking powder rather than soda, and people wonder whether it's worth going all the way to the store to, you know, buy baking soda. I personally have never used baking powder on my hair, but I've also never heard anyone have, you know, particular problems with it. Baking powder is the same stuff as baking soda, but with something extra added. I highly doubt that it's going to cause, you know, catastrophic problems with your dreadlocks, but my advice is always, you know, just pick up baking soda. I tend to get through maybe like half a box. I get a little box of baking soda every time I deep clean my hair. So if you get through it in the same sort of rate as I do, then you'd get through your whole box of baking powder in a short period of time anyway, and then you could just go buy baking soda next time, and maybe that's what you want to do. So I wouldn't say that it's super important to have soda over powder, but when you're at the store, if you have the option of the two, just, you know, pick up baking soda. Blake Taylor asks, what is your opinions on the pros and cons of sectioned versus unsectioned dreadlocks? I have covered this in a video specifically for sectioned and unsectioned dreadlocks with the pros and cons, and you will find that linked in the description below this. So if you're interested in knowing the full pros and cons, the benefits of sectioning versus unsectioned dreadlocks, you will find them all summed up in that video there. Very quickly, pros of sectioned dreadlocks: you can control how big the sections are going to be, where the sections are going to be, and neat sections reduce the likelihood of having, you know, lots of separating to do. It's not going to stop you from having to separate the dreadlocks, but it can reduce the amount of separating that you do have to do. Versus unsectioned dreadlocks, where you have a much higher likelihood of having to spend a lot longer separating the dreads. I tend to say that the time that you spend doing the sectioning, if you kind of don't do the sectioning, you'll end up spending 10 times that much time on extra separating. So personally, I recommend spending the time to do sectioning. Downside of sectioning is you kind of end up with a patchwork pattern of dreads, in that it's not as natural a pattern, but you don't have to section your hair into squares if you don't want to. You can section them however you want. The important part of the sectioning is not the size or the shape, it's how neat it is between the dreads, so that you make sure that the hair starts off in the right place, whereas if you don't section, the hairs can start off in the wrong place and you're already off to a sort of web of mess at the roots. Anthony Dach: I've stopped using crochet hook because I broke one or two of my dreads. They are now thin, separate at the root, and not locking at all. Will they ever start to lock again, or will they just fall off? Okay, so I cannot definitively answer whether your dreadlocks are going to fall off because I have never seen your dreadlocks and I don't really know what state they're in. I would say if they haven't fallen off, then if you're careful with them, they'll probably be okay. Once it's damaged, it's very difficult to fix the damaged part, but if you leave them alone long enough, the new hair is going to continue to grow out, and that new hair is going to have not been messed around with and will be fresh and free of damage. So if you leave the dreadlock alone long enough, no matter what you do to it, the new hair will grow out and it will lock and it will be fine. So provided that you're super careful with the thin part as is and you don't mess with the new growth, you will still get dreadlocks growing as you want. Facebook question this week from Amanda Rodriguez. What dread products, if any, do you recommend when starting dreads, or dread products in general? The only product that I recommend to use on dreadlocks is shampoo. Shampoo is very important because if you have dirty hair and a dirty head, it's going to be uncomfortable and make you have a sad time. In my opinion, most of the other products that you're going to find for sale are either not going to benefit your hair all that much at all in the long run and can often, really mess up your process. And then those companies that have sold you that product will then be more than happy to sell you another equally as expensive product to try and fix it, and then you'll need another product, and it's all sort of money-making cycle. And then there are other products out there that can be marketed towards you that are basically just household items that have been compiled into something that you can make at home for a lot less. So generally I think it's safest just to find yourself a soap, and for any other product that you're looking to buy, do a lot of research, because as I said, most of them are pretty much just seeming to be out there to get your money and sort of prey on insecurities in that dreadlocks are going to be messy when they're young. They are going to take a long time to mature. It is like an awkward process, and so there are people out there who will try and take advantage of that and say, hey, we have this thing, it will make your dreads neat and nice and mature faster. And obviously it's very appealing when people say that to you, but it's not really all that true. They're gonna take a long time. For making dreads, the only thing that I would apply to the hair is not a product in itself. I mean, there's probably products out there that are built off of it, but it's very easy to make yourself, in that I will just mix up water with sea salt. And if your hair is particularly soft or just too soft in condition to really hold the knots very well, applying sea salt spray can really help get those hairs to grip better when you're trying to twist and rip or backcomb. And it is a lot cheaper than a lot of the things out there online. You know exactly what you're getting. You know that whatever you put in is going to wash out. My only warning when using saltwater spray on young dreadlocks is that you don't want to get it on your skin if you can avoid it. Normally a bit of salt on your skin, not going to cause a big problem, but since you cannot wash young dreadlocks, or at least you're not recommended to wash young dreadlocks for at least a few days beforehand, it may not be something that you want to leave on your skin for a long period of time, because it can irritate your skin. Those are my questions for this week. If you would like to ask me a question to be answered in my Q&A video, you have two options. Either you can post it down in the comment section of this question and answer video, or preferably the latest question and answer video. Leave your question in the form of a comment, but write question at the start and it will join the queue. Or you can join the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/lazydreads, and each week on a Tuesday I post a status that says, do you have any questions for the Q&A? And then whichever question as a reply to that status gets the most Facebook likes by the time that I come to film, that question will get answered straight away that week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, you can click the like and then I will know that you've liked it. If you'd like to see more from me in the future, you can click subscribe. All my stuff is on lazydreads.com. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you again next week. Farewell!